Long before the world became what we know today, when dense jungles covered the Yucatan and the nights were lit by stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch, the Maya told a story passed from voice to voice, generation to generation, around sacred fires that never truly died out. It was the story of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, half serpent of the earth, half bird of the sky. A being who could move between worlds as easily as the wind moves through leaves. To the Maya, Kukulkan was not just a god, but the bridge between heaven and earth, the intelligence that brought order to chaos and taught early humans the secrets needed to survive. They believed he came in the first light of creation, descending on a beam of the morning star, carrying with him the knowledge of planting seeds, shaping the calendar, reading the stars, and building cities aligned with the movement of the cosmos. Everything the Maya understood about harmony, time, and cycles began with him. In ancient stories, Kukulkan traveled across the land in the form of a shining serpent whose feathers glowed like the sun. Wherever he moved, rivers learned to flow in the right direction. Winds softened, and people awakened to understanding they had never known before. But Kukulkan did not stay forever. Once he had offered his wisdom, he returned to the sky, leaving behind a promise. Carved into myth, he would come again when the world lost its balance. It was said that when the hearts of people became clouded, when rulers forgot compassion, and when nature suffered under the weight of human forgetfulness, the feathered serpent would descend once more to restore harmony. As time passed, elders added their own visions to the legend. Some said they had dreamed of a radiant serpent circling the heavens, watching patiently as ages rose and fell. Others claimed that during great storms, when thunder cracked the sky, they could feel Kukulkan's presence in the trembling of the earth. These stories were not taken lightly. For the Maya, myth and reality were not separate realms but reflections of each other, and the gods often spoke through symbols, signs, and natural events that only the wise could understand. Kukulkan's legend grew so powerfully that entire cities were shaped around his story. People believed that he had walked among them in ancient times, not as a spirit but in a form they could see and hear, a guide who appeared during the earliest dawn rituals and vanished again with the rising sun. The memory was so vivid that generations later, Maya priests still described his presence with stunning clarity, a voice like wind passing through reeds, eyes brighter than obsidian polished in firelight, and a body that shimmered with colors no human words could capture. To utter his name was to invoke both awe and reverence, for it reminded people that the universe itself had a guardian. But the most mysterious part of the legend was the prophecy attached to his return. The Maya believed the world moved in great cycles, each thousands of years long, and at the end of each cycle came a moment of transformation. During these transitions, the boundary between the human world and the divine world grew thinner, and it was during one of these sacred thresholds that Kukulkan was said to reappear. Not to punish, not to destroy, but to guide humanity into a new era, an era where old structures crumble so new understanding can rise. For the Maya, this prophecy was not a warning of doom but a reminder of responsibility. The feathered serpent symbolized wisdom and renewal, and his return meant humanity had reached a point where old illusions needed to fall away. Whenever crops failed, rulers grew corrupt, or wars echoed through the jungles, priests would reassure the people that the cycle had not been forgotten. The feathered serpent would return when the time was right. Until then, they watched the stars and studied the movements of the heavens, because they believed the sky recorded the great rhythms of destiny. Across centuries, the legend remained alive, carved into temple walls, painted onto codices, and whispered during ceremonies under the full moon. Even as cities rose and vanished beneath the jungle, the story endured. And in every retelling, the same promise returned: one day, when humanity forgets the harmony Kukulkan once taught, the feathered serpent will descend again, not as myth but as a sign that a new age has begun. Deep within the Yucatan Peninsula, where the jungle breathes like a living creature and ancient stones still hum with forgotten energy, the Maya built a city unlike any other, a place where myth, astronomy, and architecture merged into something that felt almost supernatural. This city was Chichén Itzá, and at its heart stood the Great Pyramid known today as El Castillo, the Temple of Kukulkan. To an outsider, it might appear as a massive, perfectly shaped stone pyramid rising above the canopy, but to the Maya it was far more than a building. It was a cosmic instrument. A calendar carved into stone, a bridge between earth and sky, and above all, a home prepared for the return of the feathered serpent. According to the ancient priests, the blueprint of the pyramid was not invented by human imagination alone. They believed the design came from the teachings that Kukulkan had once shared with their ancestors, knowledge about the cycles of time, the motion of the sun, the dance of the stars, and the secret language of shadows. Each step, each angle, each stone was placed with astonishing precision, arranged so carefully that it would record the rhythm of the universe. The Maya did not need metal tools, compasses, or modern instruments. Their instruments were the sky and their memories, sharpened by centuries of observation. For them, the movement of light was not merely a physical event but a message from the gods. As the city grew, Chichén Itzá became a sacred center where pilgrims arrived from distant regions, traveling for days through forests and heat to reach the temple of Kukulkan. They believed the pyramid stood at a place where the energy of the earth converged with the wisdom of the heavens. Priests in white garments walked its plazas at dawn, while astrologer priests tracked the position of the sun from platforms built with exact alignment. Every structure in the city served a spiritual purpose: ball courts where rituals symbolized the struggle between worlds, cenotes that were seen as gateways to the underworld, and observatories shaped like stone shells to study celestial patterns. But nothing compared to the pyramid itself. Rising with 4 stairways aligned to the cardinal directions, El Castillo was a map of time. It held 365 steps, 1 for every day of the solar year. It was divided into 18 terraces, echoing the 18 months in the Maya calendar. When the sun reached certain points in its yearly journey, the pyramid responded like a living being. On the days of the equinoxes, when day and night stand equal, the structure revealed its most powerful secret. One so breathtaking that thousands still gather to witness it today. The Maya believed the pyramid was not simply aligned with the sun, it communicated with it. When sunlight hit the edges of the steps at the perfect angle, shadows formed the shape of a giant serpent slithering down the northern staircase, heading straight toward a massive stone serpent head at the base. This was not an accident or artistic trick, it was an architectural miracle preserved through centuries. To the Maya, this was Kukulkan himself descending to earth, showing that the balance between the worlds remained intact. Every stone in the pyramid was meant to invite him, welcome him, and announce his arrival. During the height of Chichén Itzá, equinox days were filled with music, chanting, dancing, and offerings placed at the feet of the serpent head. People believed the boundary between worlds grew thinner on these days. Elders said they felt the air shift, as if the sky itself opened. Priests climbed the steps and performed rituals meant to mirror the descent of the feathered serpent. The entire city came alive, not with fear but with awe, because the descending shadow reminded them they were part of a universe much larger, much more mysterious, than their daily lives. Travelers from far regions described Chichén Itzá as a place where one could feel the presence of gods in the wind. Some said the pyramid seemed to vibrate during certain moments of sunlight, as though the stone remembered every ritual that had ever taken place there. Others claimed that at dawn, just before the sun rose, the air around the pyramid felt charged, like the breath of something ancient waiting to be awakened. For centuries, the Maya tended the city, keeping its rituals alive and its stories intact. Even after political shifts and rival kingdoms caused other cities to fade, Chichén Itzá remained a center of cosmic knowledge. The pyramid stood unshaken, silent yet powerful, as if holding its breath for the moment when the prophecy would unfold. In their hearts, the people believed that when the world's balance faltered, when the cycle signaled the turning of an age, the temple of Kukulkan would reveal a sign. And so they watched the horizon, listened to the jungle, and waited for the feathered serpent to descend once more. As the centuries passed and the city of Chichén Itzá slowly gave way to silence, the jungle crept inward, wrapping its thick green arms around the stones. Trees rose where plazas once echoed with drums, vines curled around stairways that had carried priests toward the sky, and whole generations lived and died without ever knowing the full meaning of the temple hidden beneath the leaves. Yet even as the world changed, the sun never forgot its ancient dance with the pyramid, and the pyramid never forgot the memory carved into its very bones. Every year, on 2 precise days when the earth leaned in perfect balance, on the spring and autumn equinoxes, the miracle happened again. The stones awakened. Before dawn on an equinox morning, the world feels strangely still around the pyramid. The wind softens as if holding its breath, birds grow quiet, and the sky begins to shift from deep blue into a pale glow that stretches across the horizon. As sunlight creeps forward, the edges of the pyramid catch the first rays, sharpening into bright silver lines. For a few moments, nothing seems unusual. It looks like a simple interplay of light and geometry. But the Maya knew better. They believed this was the moment when heaven signaled its presence, when Kukulkan stirred in the unseen spaces between worlds. As the sun climbs, the steps suddenly transform. A long chain of triangular shadows appears on the northern staircase, each one aligning perfectly with the next. Slowly, deliberately, the chain lengthens, curve by curve, until it forms the unmistakable shape of a colossal serpent winding its way down the pyramid. This is no flicker or illusion, it is a creature of light and shadow, a flowing body made from the sun itself. The serpent seems to descend with intention, sliding ever closer to the carved stone head waiting at the base, the head of the feathered serpent, polished and patient, as though expecting this reunion. The effect is hypnotic. Thousands of people who gather there today fall silent as the shadow serpent moves. In ancient times, when the Maya witnessed this event, the emotion was even more powerful. They believed they were watching Kukulkan step into the human world. Priests would raise their arms, chanting the sacred hymns passed down through generations. Children hid behind their mothers, peeking with wide eyes, trying to understand why the adults were trembling. The moment the shadow touched the serpent head, a collective breath would rise from the crowd, soft, reverent, almost fearful. Some said they felt the ground hum beneath their feet, a deep vibration that could only come from the presence of a divine being. Legends tell of people who claimed they saw more than just a shadow. Some described a shimmering outline around the light serpent, like a halo formed from colors unknown to this world. Others said they heard a faint sound, neither wind nor whisper, but something ancient and intelligent, as if the feathered serpent were speaking to anyone with a heart open enough to listen. The Maya did not dismiss these stories. They believed that the gods spoke differently to each person, and the miracle of the serpent was a message delivered through light to all of humanity. Even today, modern observers struggle to believe their eyes. Scientists calculate angles and trajectories, noting how extraordinary architectural precision produces the effect. Yet even those who come only for the mathematics often walk away feeling something they cannot explain, a sense that the event carries meaning beyond astronomy. The descent of the serpent ignites a quiet recognition that the ancients knew something we have forgotten. The world is alive with rhythms, cycles, and patterns that connect all things, whether human or divine. Among the living Maya communities, elders say the serpent of light is not just a visual wonder but a reminder, a sign that Kukulkan continues to watch over the world. They believe his spirit descends with the shadow, not in physical form but in presence, observing how humanity has changed, how we live, and whether we still remember the old harmony between nature and time. Some say that when the world moves out of balance, the serpent's descent feels different, its shape sharper, its glow more intense, its timing slightly uncanny, like a warning delivered in pure light. Every equinox, as tourists cheer and cameras flash, a few quiet individuals still stand with reverence, watching the serpent's slow, elegant descent. For them, this is not just a spectacle. It is a call, a question whispered from beyond the veil. Are we ready to understand the messages written in the movements of the sky? Are we prepared to see the universe not as a machine but as a living being that speaks through light, shadow, and cycles? As the final segment of the shadow serpent reaches the stone head and begins to fade, the miracle dissolves back into the ordinary world. The serpent of light returns to the sun, leaving nothing but warm stone and the echo of something sacred. But those who witness it, ancient or modern, carry the memory with them. They know they have seen something that transcends time, a moment when myth temporarily becomes real. And in that brief crossing of worlds, the presence of Kukulkan whispers again, reminding humanity that the cycles continue, and the prophecy still waits to unfold. Across the centuries, as empires shifted and cities rose and fell beneath the relentless weight of time, the Maya continued to guard something far more precious than gold, jade, or stone. They guarded knowledge. Hidden within weathered codices, carved into temple walls, and whispered through ritual chants that survived in the shadows of colonization, the prophecy of Kukulkan endured. Like a quiet flame that could never be extinguished. Scholars today still puzzle over fragments of these writings, symbols of serpents descending from the heavens, star patterns repeating in great cycles, and cryptic phrases speaking of an age of transformation. Yet the deepest meanings were never meant to be read by outsiders, they were meant to be lived, experienced, and understood through intuition rather than intellect. In the few codices that survived destruction, the feathered serpent appears again and again, not as a conqueror but as a guide. He is depicted emerging from the mouth of a celestial dragon, riding the winds, or standing between two worlds with one foot in the realm of gods and one in the realm of humans. The Maya believed that time was not linear but cyclical, spirals within spirals, ages nested within ages, and Kukulkan appeared at the turning points of these cosmic cycles. According to ancient priests, each cycle represented a stage of human consciousness. When humanity drifted too far from balance, the old cycle dissolved, and a new one began, often marked by significant celestial events or shifts in collective awareness. One of the most intriguing clues comes from the concept of the great cycles, long periods measured in thousands of years. These cycles were not predictions of disaster but reflections of the natural rhythm of the universe. They described times of harmony, followed by decline, confusion, and eventually renewal. Somewhere in these accounts, hidden in symbolic language, the prophecy of Kukulkan's return emerges. But his return was never described as a physical arrival accompanied by fire or thunder. Instead, it was described as a reawakening of wisdom, a moment when humanity would be forced to confront what it had forgotten. The Maya texts often describe this moment as the unveiling, when illusions dissolve and truth becomes unavoidable. There are oral legends, passed secretly through generations of Maya elders, that amplify this meaning. They speak of nights when the sky changed color and priests saw visions of a radiant serpent coiling through the stars. These visions were interpreted as warnings that great shifts were approaching, times when human beings would have to choose between further imbalance or a return to harmony. The elders said that Kukulkan would not return to destroy humanity but to remind it of the knowledge it once possessed, how to read the earth, how to listen to the rhythms of the sun and moon, and how to recognize the unity between all living things. One of the most mysterious elements of the prophecy is the idea that the temple of Kukulkan itself would signal the turning of an era. Not simply through the serpent of light descending the steps, but through subtler signs, changes in climate, unusual atmospheric patterns, disturbances in nature, and shifts in human behavior. Some Maya priests in the modern world believe these signs have already begun. They point to the year 2012, often misunderstood globally as a prediction of apocalypse, and explain that it was never about the end of the world. It was the end of a cycle, a moment when the old thinking collapsed and the potential for new consciousness emerged. In their teachings, 2012 marked the removal of a spiritual veil. A time when humanity could no longer ignore the consequences of its actions. For the Maya, Kukulkan's return was not something to fear. It was something to prepare for, something to welcome. It symbolized clarity piercing through confusion, renewal emerging from decay, and the opportunity to realign with the principles of balance and respect that governed the ancient world. The prophecy was also deeply personal. Elders said that Kukulkan would return not in the sky but in the hearts of people who dared to awaken, who remembered that their lives were part of a larger cosmic dance. In this sense, everyone carried a seed of the feathered serpent within them, waiting for the right moment to rise. Even today, deep in the jungles, Maya spiritual keepers perform ceremonies at sunrise, calling upon the energy of Kukulkan to guide humanity through turbulent times. They chant phrases that have echoed through millennia, light incense as their ancestors once did, and speak to the earth as if it were a living being capable of responding. They believe the world is already feeling the ripple of the new cycle, the cycle of awakening. In their eyes, the return of Kukulkan is not a prophecy about a singular event but about an ongoing transformation. It is a reminder that wisdom never truly disappears, it only sleeps, waiting for hearts brave enough to open again. As the ancient texts suggest, the feathered serpent will return when the world needs him most. Not in physical form, not in brilliant lightning across the sky, but in the quiet yet powerful shift of human understanding. His descent will not be a spectacle but a realization, a sudden clarity that spreads from one mind to another until entire civilizations rediscover the harmony they once forgot. And in that moment of collective awakening, the prophecy will be fulfilled, the wisdom of the feathered serpent will rise again, guiding humanity into the new age that has already begun. Even now, centuries after the Maya built Chichén Itzá and carved their wisdom into stone, the legend of Kukulkan continues to ripple through the modern world. Like a whisper carried on the wind, subtle yet impossible to ignore. In a time when cities stretch endlessly, lights blot out the stars, and people often forget the rhythm of the earth beneath their feet, the story of the feathered serpent offers a reminder that some truths are eternal, timeless, and far larger than human ambition. Modern scholars, spiritual seekers, and travelers from across the globe come to the ancient pyramid not only to marvel at its architectural precision but also to seek a connection with the message the Maya left behind. The descent of the Serpent of Light is no longer solely a sacred ritual performed by priests, it has become a symbol, a moment when anyone present can feel the pulse of the universe and sense the invisible threads that bind all things together. The presence of Kukulkan in the modern imagination carries layers of meaning. To scientists and historians, he is an example of human ingenuity, a testament to the Maya's deep understanding of astronomy and mathematics, and an illustration of how ancient civilizations could align human construction perfectly with cosmic cycles. But to the spiritual mind, Kukulkan is something far more mysterious, a reminder that wisdom is not static, that life moves in cycles of balance and imbalance, decay and renewal, and that the greatest teachings are not always found in books or classrooms, but in the quiet recognition of patterns that transcend time. The feathered serpent asks humanity to pay attention, to look beyond the superficial, and to understand that the universe communicates constantly, through light, through shadow, through rhythm, and through the subtle alignments that reveal themselves only to the observant eye. This message resonates profoundly in a world where disconnection from nature has led to imbalance. The prophecy of Kukulkan is, in essence, a call to realign, to remember that humans are not separate from the environment, from the cycles of the sun and the moon, from the living energy of the planet itself. The serpent descending the pyramid is a visual metaphor, a living parable, showing that all forces are interconnected. Just as the shadow moves deliberately step by step, we too must navigate our own lives with mindfulness, acknowledging that each action ripples outward, affecting the balance of the larger whole. The Maya understood this in their daily rituals, and their prophecy asks the modern world to remember what was once known, that harmony is a responsibility, not a gift. Moreover, Kukulkan represents the continuity of knowledge across time. Even as languages die, empires crumble, and civilizations fade, wisdom endures when it is honored and applied. The modern world is often obsessed with instant solutions, technological marvels, and rapid progress, yet the legend of the feathered serpent teaches patience, observation, and reverence for cycles. It reminds us that transformation cannot be rushed, it unfolds naturally, like the movement of the sun across the sky or the gradual descent of the shadow down the steps of El Castillo. The prophecy is a lesson in humility as well as hope. No matter how advanced society becomes, human understanding must remain connected to the greater forces of nature and spirit, or imbalance will inevitably return. Finally, Kukulkan challenges each individual to awaken personally, to find the serpent within His descent is not only a cosmic event but also a metaphor for inner transformation. The return of the feathered serpent is fulfilled when hearts open to clarity, when minds awaken to patterns of harmony, and when humanity collectively remembers its connection to the earth, the stars, and the cycles that govern life itself. For those who witness the light shadowing the pyramid, it is a visual cue, a quiet miracle, and a call to action all at once, to embrace wisdom, to restore balance, and to participate in the renewal that has been foretold for generations. In every beam of sunlight, every movement of the shadow, and every quiet observation under the vast Yucatan sky, the spirit of Kukulkan continues to teach, guiding the modern world toward the ancient truth that the universe is alive, cycles are eternal, and renewal is always possible if we are ready to see it. And so, on each equinox, as people gather from all corners of the globe, cameras flash and voices murmur, but somewhere deep in the shared silence, a subtle understanding passes through those who watch. They sense that they are witnessing more than a natural phenomenon, they are witnessing a living story, a prophecy that transcends time, a reminder that the wisdom of the feathered serpent is not locked in history but alive in the present, waiting for hearts and minds to awaken. Kukulkan, in the modern world, is not a god of old myths alone, he is the enduring message of balance, of harmony, and of the timeless potential for human consciousness to rise in alignment with the universe once more.